Hi, it's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and I'd like to welcome you to our call today. I'd like to welcome all of those of you listening to the playback as well. Actually, most of our listeners are on the playback, so very important part of the broadcast. And we are also happy to answer any questions that you might have. You can put those in the chat window. Especially the topic today is one that I hear a lot, and people, particularly when we do live conferences, which we're coming up and starting our live events beginning in February next year. So looking forward to that. Today we're going to talk about 3 ways to uncover skills you never thought you had, because most 50 plus people that I talk to say, gee, what could I possibly do online? What could I do as a freelancer? How do I make all this fit together? I'm too old to freelancing. They have a lot of sort of negative stuff in their head, and it's our job to unpack that and help them understand what it is they can do, and what skills they have, and what we call domains of knowledge, what those are all about, and that kind of thing. And so the tendency of a person that wants to think about working online is to think in terms of, what am I doing? What is my occupation? And of course, your skills are not your occupation, and your occupation is not your skills. I can remember talking to a dentist, and there's Bob calling in from Roatan. Very good. Welcome, Bob. Excellent. And so people are thinking in terms of, what can I possibly do? The dentist said, I can't, fix teeth online. Not yet anyway, not with robotics. And there's Mary Ann. Very good to see you, Mary Ann. Welcome in from Carefree, Arizona. Wonderful to see you today. And so the dentist said, what can I possibly do? And we talked about it for a little while. We actually came up with a list of about a dozen things. But first of all, a dentist is somebody that has extensive health knowledge. I mean, basically, they get a medical degree just like a doctor would. And so they have that whole range of understanding. They also have the understanding of what to do in an emergency situation. Or my father happened to be a dentist, so growing up as a kid, he would occasionally get calls on the weekend, and somebody would have a toothache, or would have broken a tooth, or have sore gums or something like that. And it's funny, growing up in that house, just as a kid, I heard all the treatments that you would recommend for people that are having relatively minor dental problems over the weekend, or that kind of thing, that could kind of get them through till they get to the dentist office. So the dentist has all that knowledge of how to get through different problems, different situations, until you can get proper care. And they understand about emergency situations, and they know when there's a serious problem, or whether it's something that can wait till the next day or the next couple days, that kind of thing. So lots of good skills come out of your existing career. But one of the things that most people don't understand is that they may have had 2 or 3 careers in their lifetime. And even though it's been, maybe 20, maybe 30 years since they had that career or worked in that industry, they still have knowledge of that. And for example, in my background, most of it was in technology for 30 years. But prior to that, I worked for a company called Ryder Truck Rental, which, in the corporate office of the company. And so I know a lot about transportation systems and supply chain and that kind of thing. And that knowledge is not very fresh, but I'm a better person to read an article on trucking and transportation than, say, somebody that's never been exposed to the topic before. I would catch things in reading that would make us make my knowledge more useful in a proofreading situation or an editing situation than somebody else. So you want to think about the multiple careers that you've had, and certainly prior to that, as a kid in high school, I worked in a local grocery, and some of the things I did was it's a small grocery, and I ordered the food as the things off the shelf as they went down. I understood how to do an inventory and figure out what to order and that kind of thing. So I'd be curious for anybody on the line, just pop it in the chat window, any job that you may have had long ago and far away that would give you some amount of knowledge that you might bring to bear on doing proofreading of an article or making a PowerPoint or something like that. And so those previous careers, are the number one richest source of things that you could do online. You have both skill sets that you've learned. You also have domains of knowledge. So the skill set I learned is how in the grocery job is how to take an inventory. And the domain of knowledge that I got is I learned all kinds of things about produce and how soon it perishes when it's on the shelf, and what you can do to extend the life of it, and how much to order and how frequently to order it, and that kind of thing. So lots of lessons learned there. And that's a great way to sort of unpack your background when you think about working online. So the next thing I want to talk about is this idea of volunteer activity. And this is a great place to tap. Many of us have worked for volunteer organizations over time, and a lot of what we did was sort of, it might have been help with the books, it might have been help with an event. Most volunteer organizations do fundraisers of some kind. They have annual events where they give awards to people that have been active in the process of developing the organization and promoting the organization and that kind of thing. So that's the areas to look. And so your volunteer activity, did you help with the fundraising? Did you help maybe write fundraising literature that went out to people? Did you help with an event that was designed to fundraise? Did you do calling of people in fundraising? Fundraising is a very much in demand service right now. Just the organizations of events, it's a lot of organizations are now coming up with events for the first time in a long time, and they are getting ready to do that. And Marianne actually has some great examples here. Worked in a music store specializing in band instruments, so an area of knowledge. And then at railroad tracing, carload shipments. That's fascinating. Lots to learn there. I had a father-in-law that was in the railroad business, and then a radio station, a whole different set of things. And now we have, the radio station business is a little bit static, you might say, but we have these things called podcasts that are very much like a radio station now. And I've talked to several people that have taken their skills in radio and moved those into podcasting. And so Marianne has lots of good domains of knowledge and lots of skills to bring into this kind of work. And once you do this, you talk to somebody and they say, well, maybe I got 2 or 3 things. And that's, they think they haven't got too much, and look at all the stuff that Marianne has. And that's great. And Marianne, typos are allowed. That's okay. So in addition to your domains of knowledge, other careers that you've had, other exposure that you've had to things, there is the interest area. And so that's something to think about. What things have you been interested in? What hobbies have you had? I think about my own life. I got into scouting very early and certainly had an interest in camping and exploring and hiking. And scouting certainly opens up that whole domain. My father made the mistake of taking me to an air show, which created a lifelong interest in aviation, and even a big part of the work that I did in aviation as working with flight simulation systems and that kind of thing. So your interest can be a rich source of that. I worked with somebody recently who was a coin collector, an avid coin collector in their youth. So they knew a lot about coin collecting. They hadn't been doing it recently, but I suggested that they look at jobs that touched on coin collections and that sort of thing, and they found a number of them that they would very much be able to do, given their skill set and their knowledge and that sort of thing. They didn't have to go back and get a whole big refresher course or degree or half a degree or whatever it might be on doing that, on creating refreshing their knowledge, because for 5-7 years they were very active in coin collecting, reading coin collecting magazines, and they had this body of knowledge, and that's the great thing. Once you have it, you have it. And that's a good idea to learn how to capitalize on that. So I would also be interested in any other interests that you might have had. And whether you're listening live right now or whether you're listening on the playback, interest areas are great. I remember working with a member of one of our programs who was an accountant. And by his own admission, he worked for a major corporation that probably everybody would recognize on the call. But one of the things that he had done that had been most fascinating to him in his interest area was he was a community volunteer with the local police department, sort of a liaison between the police department and the local community. It was not a paid activity. He just did that because he enjoyed doing that. But one of the things that they did is they let people ride along in the squad cars and see what policing was all about. Lots of it is pretty straightforward on a daily basis. It's not the car chases and the shoot 'em up stuff that you might see on TV. It's just very sedate, but important. And it's getting trash removed. It's pulling cars parked in bad places so people can't get out of their house and that kind of thing. And one of the things that has happened in policing is there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with policing, and that keeps the police out of the neighborhoods and out of really out preventing crime. And so what they did is they taught this police department, taught the ride-along people how to fill out some of the paperwork, and then of course it would be reviewed by the police officer. But by reviewing that paperwork, that freed up lots of time for the police officers to be more present in the local community. So that's kind of an interesting way to bring that to the that interest area to the table, because he knew at the community level, policing activities from top to bottom, and he had a lot of great skills. So that interest area can be a very powerful thing when you are looking at skill sets that you have and domains of knowledge. Now, you're probably not going to get a job filling out police reports, but you might get a job creating reports and just having an understanding of how to create reports. And of course, as an accounting professional, this person also was very good in using Microsoft Excel. And so he was able to bring some of his skills with Microsoft Excel to improve the way that this police department was summarizing their uh, their crime statistics and that kind of thing. So lots of ways to bring something you already know how to do into a situation like that. So I would encourage you to dig deep, to scratch the surface. It's usually best to write this stuff down. The more of it that you get out on paper, uh, the more that tends to flow out. And when people come into our programs, we recommend they do this over, uh, a couple weeks, because you start and you think about a few things, and that kind of knocks the dust off a few brain cells, and then you think about a few more when you're in the shower 3 days later, and then you think about a few more when you're driving someplace or that kind of thing. And so always good to pull those ideas out and have pencil and paper, or an iPhone ready at the hand to capture that information, because each one of those can lead to potentially a very satisfying online opportunity to pursue in the freelancing arena. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. Happy to answer any questions. It's interesting. August is kind of a quiet month, and we have now this Delta virus situation that's sort of swirling around. So some summer plans are interrupted, but a lot of people are getting out and are doing things, and that's great. And they're learning how freelancers live the rest of the year, is that they have much more freedom and flexibility around their time. And that's a very important thing to have. We're also seeing reports. Microsoft just reported that they expect a 41% attrition rate, which they think that 41% of the employees that were working in their offices will not come back to the offices. And there's lots of articles like that out there. So we see lots of things happening, especially in September. Historically, the months of July and August are vacation months for a lot of people. But after Labor Day, kids are back in school, parents settle down, people tackle new assignments, they want to plow new ground. We have many people starting in freelance programs in that kind of time frame. So it's always been a very active time, and that's when this thing called the Great Resignation is expected to happen, because what corporations are seeing is they're seeing people that come back into the office, and then they say, I may not want to be here. I got pretty much used to, over a year and a half, working from home, and I really like the way that works. So if you're going to tap into my skill set, you got to figure out a way that I can do this from home instead of coming into an office. And so lots of that expected to be happening particularly starting after Labor Day, is people are reevaluating. Do I really want to do a commute? Do I really want to work in an office building in a metropolitan area? Do I really want to expose myself to the current variant or any other? We've all lived through working in an office building and somebody gets the flu and it kind of makes its way around the building. We're just all rethinking how that works. And of course, being a freelancer means you have time flexibility. You can work at things when you want to work on them. And you also have location flexibility. You can work on this kind of stuff from wherever you are in the world. So really a big advantage. And now that the rest of the world has been exposed to that, I started freelancing in 2000, and just on the side, it was a side hustle, and then really started my company in earnest in 2001, and became a full-time freelancer, because it was just so much better than being an employee. And the great thing now is there's been lots of stuff figured out. The big question always is, well, what do I do for insurance, medical insurance, that kind of thing? That's a big question mark usually, and there's lots of good solutions to that now. Lots of great ways to piece that that together for freelancers, and all the other things. How do I put together a savings for my retirement? That kind of thing. And lots of great companies have developed solutions for that. And it's one of the most active areas of venture capital right now, providing these services to freelancers, because companies and freelancers, but the entrepreneurs see a real big activity in this, people going out and working on their own. So with that, I'll bring this call to a close. Would appreciate a like and a subscribe. If that's up to you, you'll get a little notice about when we do these, although it's not really a mystery. It's every Friday at noon Central Time. And again, we're happy to welcome those of you listening to the replay of this, and happy to answer any questions you want to pop in the chat window there. So until next week, enjoy your summer, take care, and we'll see you again soon.